Good morning. So the title today is Your Inner Calling. Do you feel called to do something in your life?
Yes.
Do you feel maybe some people are artists and that's their calling, or musicians, or some people want to devote their lives to God, and that's a pretty good calling. And if you look at the famous people around the world and what they achieved, is because they probably felt within themselves a strong desire towards to do something. So I have three questions that I want to look at. The first is, do you know your purpose in life?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that only two people? Do you know your purpose in life?
Yes.
Yeah, still not so many, but maybe you're finding a way. Yes. So, and the second question is, are we designed to follow a life plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you designed? It's like there's a plan. Even when you're born, there's already a plan for your life. It's a destiny. Like in Star Wars, Luke, it is your destiny. Yeah.
Yes.
Who believes they have a destiny from when they're born? A plan for their life, like in your DNA. You're not so sure. Yes. You think so? Okay.
Detailed plan, just the
Watch in progress.
general.
And the third one is, do you feel guided from within?
Yes.
That was a pretty strong answer there. Guided from within. Because if you have an inner calling, it's something within you that's guiding you. So, this first question, do you know your purpose in life? Well, before we answer that question, we should look at the bigger picture of life. And that is, what is God's purpose? Because since we understand God created us, He created us for a purpose. And if we are aligning with that purpose, then our life can be more fruitful, more fulfilling, more meaningful. So, what is the purpose of life according to God? So in the divine principle, we talk about fulfilling the three blessings. That in the Garden of Eden, God said to Adam and Eve, He said, be fruitful and multiply and have dominion. In Genesis 1:28. He wanted them to fulfill these three things. But instead, they disobeyed God and they fell. And since that point, all humankind has lived in a stage of separation from God. And this is our understanding. But actually, God has worked through history to restore that connection. So what are these three blessings? Be fruitful. Become an ideal individual. We're created in God's image and likeness. We are God's children. God's Spirit dwells in us. God wants us to grow to become like God. We should be like God. As Jesus said, you must become perfect as your Heavenly Father is perfect. It doesn't mean to say you don't make a mistake. What it means is you grow your character, mature your character, like fruit on a tree. When a tree is mature, it bears fruit. So we need to develop as people to be kind and honest and reliable and responsible, and most of all to be loving, to develop a heart of love, because God, we understand, is not just a God of love, but a God of heart. God has feelings, and God wants us to be like Him so that we reflect God's heart of love. Then multiply, create an ideal family. Of course, to become an ideal person, you need a family. We're all born into a family, and what do we need first as children? What do you need when you're born? What do you need from your parents?
Love.
Food, yes? Yes, no, love. Yeah, love. We need love. So, because parents, they give unconditional love to their children. So the beginning point of growing as an individual is that we need to receive love. We need to feel that we are valuable. Yeah? And in that family, having brothers and sisters is also important, because then you're learning to share love, help each other, support each other. So, the first stage of love in the family is as a child and parents' love towards you. The second stage is brothers and sisters. So that's why we need brothers and sisters. If you don't have brothers and sisters, well, friends. Friends is the same kind of dynamic. And then the next stage of love is the husband and wife, because this is a deeper love. This is a love where you make a lifelong commitment to stay together. And also that love is like, then you're fully reflecting God, because we understand God is not just a heavenly father, but also a heavenly mother. God is both male and female. So to become like God, we need the unity of husband and wife, the two aspects of God's nature. And then the highest level of love is parental love, because that is like God's love, unconditional, sacrificial, eternal, never-ending. So in order to become fruitful, to become the best you can be, to mature your character, we need to grow in a loving family where parents love each other and overcome their differences for the sake of that child and for the sake of that everybody in that family can really mature and grow and come closer to God. Have dominion to create an ideal world. Of course, a world made up of ideal families, God-centered families, loving families, stable families, then that creates a whole world of peace. But having dominion is more about our relationship to the natural world, that we're meant to take care of the world with love. God gave us a beautiful world. We shouldn't just selfishly take what we want and destroy things. Also, to create an ideal world, this is where education comes in, because we need to develop knowledge and skills so that we can make a happy or a comfortable living environment. So that's why science is very important. Actually, if I was to look at these three blessings from the viewpoint of education, then you could say to be fruitful is like, we call it education of heart. We need to develop our heart first. That's the most important thing. And secondly, when it comes to the family, that's the education of norms. Norms of behavior. You can't just take what you want. You have to share. You have to cooperate. You have to help each other. Education of norm. Yeah? The third is education of dominion. And this is what basically schools teach. Teach skills, knowledge, so that you can use that knowledge in society to have a job and to contribute. But if you don't have a developed heart, and if you haven't learned rules of life, then if you come from a dysfunctional family, even if you're very knowledgeable, you could be destructive to yourself and to others. So, our purpose. So to know what my purpose is, I need to look at why did God create us? And I find the three blessings is a very good guide. So if I ask myself, do I know my purpose in life? I'll say yes. And for all of you who are sitting here who belong to our movement, it's a definite yes. You know your purpose. As long as you understand God's purpose and try to follow that purpose. And it says in the divine principle, God's purpose is to restore completely the fallen world to the original world which God intended. This is God's dream and desire. The original world where all people experience God's love and feel oneness with God, and there is peace, and we all feel as like brothers and sisters, or we could say one family under God. But what does it depend upon? This can be realized only when human beings complete their portion of responsibility. We are not robots. So God created us with free will. And that's where the problem was with Adam and Eve. They went their own way. Yes? And so that's the problem with the world. Selfishness, self-centeredness, egotism, thinking about yourself, what's in it for me? So we need to change inside and take responsibility in order to change this world. You can have many peace conferences, but if people don't change inside, and if we don't have stable, happy families, and we don't understand that someone from another country is like our neighbor or our brother and sister, then we can't overcome these things. Are we designed to follow a life plan? And quite a few of you are not sure. It's already designed. When I was born, it was already a plan for my life. Did I have free choice? Yes. Well, so it says all fallen people can become the ideal people God has predestined us to be. We are predestined to become ideal people. That's our destiny. Predestined means already when we were created, there was a path for us to achieve perfection. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yes. But only when they complete their responsibility. So there is a life plan for us. And I believe that each one of us, being unique creations of God, with this purpose to fulfill these three blessings, to become the best we can be. That's our destiny. But of course, what we do with our life, the interests we have, it's up to us. But I feel that within me, all my life, something is guiding me towards some destination. I feel it. And I'll come back to that later. So, do you feel guided from within?
Yes.
You feel guided? Yeah? Well, we have an inner voice, don't we? Like, you could say our conscience, you could say the presence of God within us, kind of something deeper, our higher self, guiding us. We may not listen to it, but I believe that that's what God planted inside of us. And if we listen to it, then we can go in the direction we're meant to go. Of course, that inner voice can be influenced, not just like within, but we may also pick up other thoughts. Do you know where from? Angels. I mean, I have my own thoughts, and God is guiding me, I hope. But don't you think that angels sometimes whisper into your ear? Have any of you ever had an experience with an angel? You see, yes. Has anybody heard an angel speak to them? The voice of an angel? Well, also, who else might speak to us? Spirit guides. Who are spirit guides? That's people who lived on this earth, and they want to help us on our path. We may, have maybe even an artistic person. We have some artists in the spirit world who would like to inspire you to greater art. Or whatever your chosen path is. If you're a scientist, then maybe there are scientists with you. And what else? Ancestors. You hear these stories of people who have a near-death experience, and who meets them first? Their mother, their father, the people they knew. And they say, I'm always with you. And sometimes people get signs of the presence of a loved one. So we're not alone. So on this journey that we have, this idea that there is also there's a path for us to go. It's not only within ourselves we may feel in our deepest self, but also we get kind of little signs. And also I believe that the spirit world, sometimes we have a certain experience or meet a certain person, and it's like divinely guided. It's not just chance. To what extent is our life divinely guided? Well, this book called Voices of Love from the Light I have talked about before. It's written by Philip Burley, who's a trance medium, and under hypnosis from this lady Dolores Prioratet, I think her name is. Under hypnosis, these well-known people who lived on the earth communicate through his voice. And this is a fascinating book. And in it, it says here, it's conversations with 20 great souls in the afterlife. Jesus, Buddha, Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, Yogananda, Harriet Tubman, Edgar Cayce, Eleanor Roosevelt, Saint Germain. Saint Germain, he lived in the 1700s, and I think he was like the son of a prince, but he was kind of a philosopher, and he was kind of lived a very morally good life. And he says this. This is his message from Spirit World. He says this: all people have guides and teachers assigned to you from the Spirit World, though many do not know we are there with them. The degree to which they can help you depends upon your receptivity. Receptivity, you know, we have like a little antenna. So in order to receive guidance, we actually have to be receptive, which means not just self-centered and just thinking, you know, your ego, but actually the more you are kind of developed as a person, the more you're open and the more kind of vibrationally you're on a higher level, then the spirit world can come down to contact you. And then what about angels? Well, Archangel Michael says this: angels work closely with human beings, and each of you has 2 angels assigned to you from the time you are born. They are with you at all times, guiding and protecting you. They are hidden, unobtrusive, and quiet, because that is the nature of angels. As they work with each one of you, they represent the quiet voice, the quiet force of God. So we're never alone. We actually have a team with us. Some spirit, maybe a spirit guide will stay with us our whole life. Other spirit guides come and go, depending upon our needs and our interests and our development. So we're not alone. So this idea that we have a destiny, that from birth there is a path we're meant to go, it makes sense if you have the spirit world around you assigned to you to guide your life, whispering into your ear, seeing your particular qualities and skills and what you can do to make this a better world.
Can I ask you,
Yes.
who was this from? Is this
Saint Germain.
The voice of
Oh no, this is Archangel Michael, the angel.
Okay.
Under hypnosis, this medium, the spirits, yes, it's in this book. And if I go back a bit to Saint Germain has worked with Philip Burley for many years, and he's written several books of messages from him. And also, Saint Germain, he's known, have you heard of the violet flame? The violet flame is like you can kind of call upon this energy, this kind of violet energy to kind of help you in your life. So, I would now like to look at one person, a famous person. You might not know him, but this person, his last book he wrote, there were like 58 chapters of his life, and each chapter was showing how he was guided. It wasn't chance. So this is Wayne Dyer. Anybody heard of Wayne Dyer?
Yes.
He died in 2015, and it's interesting because there's this, you know, you can say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Have you heard of that? And I feel him. I picked up one of his books about 30 years ago. I just couldn't get into it. And then I got one of his books this year, and I was completely drawn and inspired, and I felt, wow, this man has so many truths and so many insights into life. So now I'm ready for this man. So, what does he say? Well, Dr. Wayne Dyer was an internationally renowned author and speaker in the fields of self-development and spiritual growth. He wrote 41 books, including 21 New York Times bestsellers, and appeared on thousands of television and radio shows. So, in the beginning, he was a kind of a lecturer, and in his first book, it was more about like from the psychological viewpoint of how you can develop yourself. But during his life, he kind of veered towards more the spiritual path. And I would like to, he says this also. Yeah, his main message was that every person has the potential to live an extraordinary life. And it is possible for every person to manifest their deepest desires if they honor their inner divinity and consciously choose to live from their highest self. So he's saying we can all live extraordinary lives. We're meant to live extraordinary lives. We're meant to be happy and joyful and creative and fulfilled and and live in a world of peace. We're meant. This is our destiny. This is God's desire for us. But how do you do it? Honor your inner divinity. Recognize who you are. You are not just a physical body, and you're not just an individual person. God's Spirit dwells in you. God wants to express through you. You are a divine being. If you don't think you're a divine being, that's the problem. Well, that's the problem with fallen mind. It's like we feel inadequate. Oh, I'm not good enough. But actually, in essence, we are divine. And God wants to express through us, but we have to grow up in order for us to experience that. And he says we have to consciously choose to live from the highest self, the deepest, from the God presence within us. So this is the principle. This is the principle. We can become perfect, ideal people, as we're meant to be, if we open up to God's presence and recognize God is with us. And we're not alone, and we're guided, and we should listen so we can go in the direction we're meant to go. So, this is the last book he wrote. He was about 72 years of age, and the book is called I Can See Clearly Now. You know the song, I can see clearly now the rain has gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds hanging over me. It's going to be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. I love that song. I sing it a lot. Is that right, Ava? Do I sing that sometimes? All the time. well, she's exaggerating, but it's true. It's somehow, I feel very good when I sing this. So, this book, this is what he says. As I look back over my life, it is not a far reach for me to conclude that there is some kind of plan that is always at work, even it is largely unknown as it unfolds. So when he looks back at his life, in every chapter of the book, he says something which happened, and then always the next section is, I can see clearly now. This is how God was working in my life. This is why I met that person. He was the third of three boys, and when he was 1.5 years of age, his father was in jail. He was a drunkard and a womanizer, and basically then his mother divorced him because he was not being a good father. And his mother tried to keep the family together, but she had to work. She couldn't take care of 3 children, so the oldest son was sent to live, I think, with an uncle, and the 2 younger ones, including Wayne, had to go into a care home, a foster home or an orphanage. And so for the first, you could say, almost 10 years of his life, well, up to the age of 10, he was not at home. So he had to learn a lot of self-reliance. And actually, looking back at his life, he realized that learning to stand on his own feet, and because he didn't have the love of a father or his mother, as he would want, but he learned self-reliance, and that's one of the themes of his life. It's like, you have to find your own way, your own path in life, and not expect everybody else just to kind of do things for you. So, when he was, then later his mother found a new man, but he wasn't much better. He was a drunkard. And, but when he was 10, his family was not working. He was back at home, so he's back at home, and he went to school. And then he tells a story about... I'll come back to that later. So, so who is this man? Yes, this man is Lao Tzu. Do you know who he is? Lao Tzu, he's kind of, you could say, the founder of Taoism. And he lived about 500 years before Jesus. And he dictated about 31 sayings. And if I just read this here. Yeah, he wrote something called the Tao Te Ching, which is called the Way of Virtue. And he dictated 81 verses about how to live a moral life. And the Tao is like God, yeah, and how to live how to live a balanced life, how to live with nature, and how to be a good citizen. And the interesting thing is that Wayne Dyer, this is one of his spirit guides, and he knows that, because when he started reading his book, it's like he was excited and engrossed by it, and it really caught his imagination. And so what he did, he started reading over a whole year. He just read this book, the Tao Te Ching. And then he, based upon it, he wrote his own book called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And it says, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. And there was an experience, he was a lecturer. And one time in Canada, when he was speaking in front of lots of people, one person in the audience, for a short second, saw a moment, saw his appearance completely change. He had like a ponytail, and he had these robes and Chinese. So he actually he became like this person in that moment. So this is one of the spiritual paths Wayne Dyer went on. But he was not choosing it. He was like led to this book. He was fascinated by it. He wanted to read more. And the whole idea of writing the book was to update Lao Tzu's words into kind of modern English, and to kind of write it so it's more accessible for the modern person. So you could say Wayne Dyer's calling, Lao Tzu from Spirit World wanted his message to be updated for the 21st century, so that it could be more accessible. So he was chosen. And also another spirit guide that has been working with him was St. Francis. And he had workshops and like you could say taking groups of people to Assisi and praying there, and so he felt this connection, and he has many books. Well, he had many books at home about St. Francis, about his life. He could kind of feel some connection with him. And he then wrote a book called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, and it's based upon the prayer of St. Francis, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. So each chapter, he's explaining the meaning of each of these lines. And he had a spiritual experience when he was in Assisi, and he was climbing up this kind of old church. He was with a party of people, and there was this kind of narrow spiraling staircase. And behind him was a man who had some like leg braces because he had some problems with his legs. And he said, I can't, the steps were too high. He said, I can't lift my leg. Could you help me? And so Wayne Dyer said, yeah, sure, I'll carry you. The trouble was Wayne Dyer had a problem with the knee, and he actually needed maybe to kind of have an operation on it. But in that moment, he just kind of volunteered to take him. So he took him, and he started to climb, and then, his leg was almost about to give way. And then suddenly, the spirit of St. Francis appeared to him. And St. Francis, he didn't speak, he just said, keep going, keep going. And suddenly, he felt this energy into his body, and he kind of felt so empowered, and he started running up the stairs. And when people got to the top, they were surprised, well, how did you do that? And so, that was a spiritual experience where you could say St. Francis gave him this energy, and then his knee, from that time on, he had no problem with his knee. And there was another time when in Assisi he was speaking, and he was telling the story about St. Francis's life. He was telling the story of when Jesus told Francis to kiss the lips of lost the word now. No, what was the illness people had in Bible times? Leprosy. Yeah, kiss the lips of a leper. Yeah. So it's just kind of very moving. Yeah. So as he was reading this, Wayne just stopped. He just froze, and he just started to cry uncontrollably. It's like because he felt such a depth of love from St. Francis that Francis could overcome such a thing and follow Jesus' direction, kiss the lips of a leper. Yeah. Also, in that I referred to earlier about in Canada, there was this lady who wrote to him who said, you transformed into Lao Tzu. But on that same occasion, first it was Lao Tzu, then it was St. Francis. So they taking over the body. Have any of you had an experience like that where you felt some spirit is guiding you and with you and you have some empathy for them?
Not famous people.
No. Yes. So he lived a remarkable life, but I want to go way back to his childhood. His book, there are so many stories of how God was guiding him, but I would like to go back to when he was 10 years of age. He went to school, and do you know the story, The Secret Garden?
Yes.
Well, I read it recently. I hadn't read it before. I kept seeing it, but when I read it, I thought, my, what a lovely story. And so when he was 10 years of age, he was 1950, and his teacher was called Mrs. Engels. And every day at 2:45 p.m., she read The Secret Garden to them. And this was his favorite time of the day. Yeah. And if the other children were a bit noisy, he told them, you have to listen. And they listened to him, and because he spoke with kindness and authority, because this was really important. So The Secret Garden is about a 10-year-old girl, same age, who was sent from India to England because her parents died from a cholera epidemic. But when she was in India, she wasn't really cared for, so she felt unloved. So when she came to England, and she stayed in this big house with many rooms where her uncle lived, and her uncle didn't really care about her much either, he was always away. And so when she arrived there, she was kind of very negative and resentful and sour. And but, of course, Wayne Dyer could relate very much to her because he also felt unloved. He'd grown up in orphanages, and she was like an orphan, basically, no parents. But she discovered this garden, a garden within a garden. And in this secret garden, it was a special place because here, there are two of the characters. There's a boy in a wheelchair who had been kind of almost locked up in this big house, and no one knew about him, and he thought he was going to die. And then she found him and brought him to this garden, and he became well. And also the other boy who's pushing him, he was a local boy who had kind of such a relationship with nature. He could talk to the animals and to the flowers and the trees, and this was like a magical place. And so in this place, it changed Mary from being a very negative, complaining, very self-centered girl. This magic garden transformed her, and so she became like a whole outlook on life changed to being very positive. And because this idea that he was fascinated that this place, a secret garden, could also be in your mind. So for him, he already was kind of thinking about, with his drunk father, and trying to find a place within himself, and he could resonate with this story. And it fascinated him that within yourself there can be a place, like a secret place, that no one can get into, where all things are possible, like a magical place. And he says, he then could create his own secret garden, where all things are possible, where I can talk to the animals and the flowers. And in the story, there's a robin redbreast bird, which somehow is connected and is kind of part of their world and responds to them. And when Wayne walked home every day, there were all these birds and robin redbreasts, and he would talk to them. And he thought, if these characters can talk to the animals and the birds, so can I. And in this place, all kind of illness can be cured. Well, I can cure people. So it's like from the age of 10, he already planted in himself some very new ideas which set him on a path in life. And he says this: I often look back to that classroom with Mrs. Engels and think about how divine providence was working on my behalf. Somehow I was guided into her classroom by a force that set a fire within me. It was to become the impetus for a body of work encompassing my entire adult life. So one story, one classroom, one teacher, that time, it sparked his imagination and it affected his whole life. And in all the books he wrote, there was this theme about this imaginary place within ourselves where all things are possible. At the time, I was unaware I'd spent a lifetime exploring this idea of there being a solitary chamber within all of us, which gives us a power to live our lives at extraordinary levels. It seems clear to me that Mrs. Engels was in my life to awaken a passion within me for going way beyond the ordinary. So, I recommend the book, of course. And I feel in my life I've been guided to many books. And I will explain this a little later. So, what about looking back on your life? For those who are a little older, not too old, but older, if you look back at your life, can you see certain things which happened, certain people you met, certain books you read, or that you were guided in some way, that this was meant to happen? And for the younger people amongst us, I know you haven't lived as long as me, but you've reached this point in your life now. Do you feel that you've been guided? Can you see different occurrences? For example, Felix, you've come to Sweden.
Yes.
It's the best thing you could have done, you know.
Yes.
Yes. I think it was meant to be. Yes, yes.
I'm not guided yet.
Yeah, there you go. Same with me. I feel I was meant to be here. Yeah. So it's interesting. If you look back, you can maybe see, that was meant to happen. At the time, you don't know. But the thing is, what Wayne Dyer said is that, well, how do we get this help? Well, if we are very kind of self-centered and only think about, what's in it for me, you're on a lower vibration. But if you serve people, if you sacrifice and live for a higher purpose, then actually you're more receptive. So that's why when we talk about the purpose of life, if you live for the sake of others, we talk about true love. True love is to give without expecting anything in return. If you have that kind of attitude in life, then you're going to get more help. Because the help's there, but you may not listen or pay attention. And I think that's how it is in life. I think we're all guided. There is a passage in the Bible says, many are called, but few are chosen. And I think because we're being called all the time, but I'm not listening. That's just my imagination. So I think people who are chosen are those who listen more. Okay, so, do you know your purpose in life?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you designed to follow a life plan?
Yes.
Do you feel guided from within?
Yes.
Well, what about me? I'm going to tell you a little about my life now, how God has guided me. So, as you know, I'm a teacher. My life is a teacher. So how have I been guided? So I qualified as a teacher in 1975. My father was a teacher, so you would say, well, therefore it makes sense to be a teacher, but I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be an actor. But then I compromised. I thought, well, I'm glad I didn't become an actor, a professional actor, because it's corrupt and it's so on. But I thought, if I become a drama teacher, I can do something I love and make a good living, have a stable job. So I qualified in 1975, but then 1 year later, I met the Unification Church. So I had to give up my teaching job, But fortunately, I had done my first year of teaching, the probationary year, so I was fully qualified. So, and what's interesting, even though I gave up everything, to serve God and to follow an ideal, actually, in 1979, in England, there was a school. We had a small school called Cleeve House School, and we needed teachers. I was a young member. I'd been a member for 3 years, and they'd actually sent somebody there to teach, but he wasn't fully qualified. He hadn't finished his training, but I had. So they asked me to go there, and I was there for about 4 years, living in Cleeve House, beautiful countryside. So you could say that I was guided there, and I was also, I have to go back a bit, because when I was training as a teacher, it was for 4 years, after 2 years, I said to my father, I don't really want to be a teacher, I want to be an actor. So he said to me, he said, just keep going, don't give up, it's better you complete it. And that's the best advice I ever got. I didn't give up. Because if I'd given up, I would never have been teaching in Cleeve House. Yes? So that was a unique experience. And then, well, I went to America in 1986. Was it? No, 85. Members were asked to volunteer to go there, and I was working there. But we have a seminary there, Unification Theological Seminary. But in order to get there, you have to have a degree, and I had a degree in education, a bachelor's degree in education. So again, because of that, I was able to go to the seminary. If I hadn't finished my education, I wouldn't have gone there. So that was interesting. And well, then I moved to, well, later I came back to England, I was able to get some teaching jobs, and then I moved to Sweden. And moving to Sweden, I remember I was in Germany, I was on some workshop, and then I phoned up Ava, and I had this very strong feeling, I want to come to Sweden. I just felt this calling. So that's an example of the calling. I was meant to come here. And so when I moved here, something I did is, I've been teaching Sunday school for years. Actually, it was not just from 92, I think before, from 92 onwards I was teaching. And so for many years I was doing that. So here in Sweden, the question is, who's qualified to do that? Me. Do we have any teachers in our community? Well, my wife teaches little children, so she helped a little bit, but in the beginning. And I know some of you mothers were helping teach, but this became a calling. And I suppose it's because I had the background. I knew I could then actually develop a curriculum. And also, I started doing these one-day seminars on developing your character. And so then I was guided to a book. And that book was the Book of Virtues by William J. Bennett, a treasury of great moral stories. Because, you want to teach our ideas to children. The principle is pretty philosophical and it's pretty hard to understand. And then I got this kind of idea. Well, this I can teach, the principle I can teach through stories. And so this was my inspiration, and I feel I was guided to this book. Actually, at that time I was teaching English to adults, so I had a computer in front of me every day. And that's when Amazon.com, I discovered this book. So if I'd not gone to that job teaching, I wouldn't have found that book. And if I hadn't found that book, I wouldn't have started these seminars and teaching character education. And so then, then I completed this Sunday school curriculum in 2014. It was like a labor of love. I remember how, I made all these lesson plans, and I kind of got all kinds of inspirations and insights. And when I look back at it, when I read what I wrote, I say, wow, that's really good. How did I write that? But I feel, again, I was guided. Somebody in spirit world, some teacher or some ascended master is guiding me, because my motivation was not to make money from this. My motivation was to inspire our young second generation. And so this is kind of the Sunday school curriculum. It's vast. There's like over 300 lesson plans, detailed lesson plans. And it's for children from age 3 up to age 14. And then included in there are these kind of materials for seminar. So I never intended to do such a thing. I just went from Sunday to Sunday. Oh, we need to have a lesson. And gradually I started thinking, I need to record what I do. And then I need to make a structured lesson plan. And in my head I was thinking, maybe I can make a curriculum out of this. And when I finally finished it, what people say is, wow, You don't need to prepare anything. It's all done. Isn't that right, Sarah? Sarah started teaching Sunday school using this. So my motivation was, I know it takes a lot of investment, but I thought, if I can make something that others can use, then they don't need to spend endless hours creating something. So I was guided. And so, now is 2022, and what am I doing? I'm giving sermons. This is my thing now. So I feel called to do this. It's strongly within me. Yeah? And I feel God work. And it's not just me. All of us can be like this. Why? I'm not so special, but God designed us to be this way. But I think because, I suppose from the age of 23 when I joined our movement, then I kind of said, okay, I believe in this and I want to be part of this. And I offered myself full time for 12 years. I had no money of my own. I just dedicated myself to serve God and to be part of our movement's activities. So blessing comes when you have that mindset. And when I came here, my thinking was, what can I do? Not where can I sit, but no, what can I do? And so, because and even though I'm 68, I'm not waiting. Can't wait to get to the next life. I'm tired, and I don't feel like that. Of course, some people their life will end earlier than others. We don't know, but it's like I am so excited. I'm so enthused and so enthusiastic to share things, because something's been going on, especially since I retired. I keep finding new books. Spiritually enlightened people. Wow, this is great. And then I'm thinking, okay, I have the divine principle by understanding, but this man here, he's saying such inspiring things. Okay, so how does that fit together? And what does it say about this? And what can I see in that? And it's like, I feel I'm being guided to expand my mind, because the divine principle is our framework, but the details about how do we establish this first blessing? How do we perfect our character? How do we develop? And the basics are there, but the details are not. And I think that God is inspiring many other people on their path with their inner calling, and they have so many valuable things that I can learn from, we can all learn from. So, I would like to end, so look at the screen, look at this. There you go. So, thank you for listening.